The Empower Hour series was created for all of the women out there who have done everything they were supposed to do in life and are struggling to discover what's next. I see you. You know there's so much more out there, but you just don't know how to align with what's next for you. Well, you're not going to struggle anymore. It's time for you to create your new path and fall in love with your life over and over again. See that badass woman over there who has discovered what's next for her? Let's go ask her to share how she did it and become inspired. And if she can discover what's next, so can you. Hello, everybody. This is Suzanne Orlando here with another episode of the Empower Hour series. So on today's episode, we have Katherine Pacheco, and Katherine her mission is to let others learn how to receive and release energy to gain success. And Katherine has a pretty kick-ass podcast and YouTube channel called Chakras and Curse Words. And I have to be honest that when I met Katherine on Clubhouse and she has on her profile picture, this is Chakras and Curse Words, or is part of her profile picture. Yeah. I was immediately drawn to her because, as you know, if you've been following me, you know that I love dropping a healthy F-bomb here or there, and see that not as something I see that as something powerful and just another way to express our language. So without further ado, Katherine, welcome to our show. I am so happy to have you here today.
Thank you for having me. Yes. So the name of my podcast is Chakras and Cuss Words. And it's a podcast that bases on three main pillars, which is self-care, self-awareness, and self-growth. That's basically where I formulate everything through that and then continue to progress, especially with the energy work and the chakras. So yes.
Awesome. And we're definitely going to get into that because I know that I love talking about energy work. And I know that a lot of our viewers probably, or whether they know or don't know about that, it's definitely something interesting for them to discover. But you did not start out with a podcast. You started out in the field of nursing. So do you want to share with us a little bit about your personal story, maybe how you initially got into nursing and how you came into to do what you do now?
Yeah. So, I mean, to take it like back from the beginning, I started off as a kid who had a major heart defect. I have transposition of the great vessels. Okay. So I was born with a major heart defect. So I had my kids pretty young, and then I decided I had to get into some kind of career. My career path obviously was healing. I was considered myself a healer. So I went into nursing. And
that seems pretty aligned with everything that you went through as a kid with your heart condition.
Yeah. So it was pretty good. Yeah. But it took a while. Most of it was just learning how to cope with the studying, with having two kids at a young age. I had my daughter at 20, my son at 24, and then by the cardiologist, they recommended that I had my tubes tied. So then I had my tubes tied at 24, and I took some time off. I was lucky, my husband was very supportive, kind of wanted me to stay home with the kids at first when they were smaller. Then probably around the time that my son was like 4 or 5, I really started to concentrate on school. And I was very driven in the fact that I've always kind of been like that person who I work better under chaos.
Okay.
I work better under chaos, and I work better under having people tell me that I'm not going to succeed.
Oh, I love that. So you almost take that and you say, I'm going to show you or prove you wrong.
Yes. So and that's kind of the way that I've always been. When I first started my nursing career, everybody was like, well, when I first started taking the nursing classes, I was going to 3 colleges.
Wow.
Yeah. So I was going to 3 colleges because it was hard to get into prereqs. So I would take a class here, take a class there, take a class. So I was doing that. And then when I finally got into nursing school, it was the nursing school that happened to be like an hour and a half, 75 miles away from my house. So the nursing instructors called me in and they were like, and the director, like, we don't recommend you coming to this nursing school. We think you should find a nursing school closer to your house because of the commute.
Okay.
And it made sense. Like, who wants to be in traffic 2 hours there and then 2 hours back? It's
with
like
young
4
children
hours
at home. Mm-hmm.
with children at home.
Mm-hmm.
And I told myself, no, I'm going to continue to do the nursing program because I devoted all this time to get in and I was driving around anyways. And if this was the one thing I was going to focus on for the next 2 years was to finish my nursing degree, then that's what I was going to do. And that's exactly what I did. Like, I mean, when you talk about like manifesting and breaking
Yeah.
blocks, I've, with like my son, I manifested him to be a boy.
I've heard you tell this story on Clubhouse, which I
Yes.
think is amazing.
So when they told me I wouldn't finish nursing school, I was like, yeah, no, I'm finishing nursing school and I'm going to do it in the 2 years. And, it was a hard struggle. Like I definitely went through like just telling myself all I needed was like I had this saying and I would wake up every morning and I would say 75 to stay alive, 75 to stay alive. And that meant because you had to score at least a 75 on the test.
Okay.
So I wasn't aiming for A's. I was aiming to complete the nursing program. So
Yeah.
I would wake up every morning and say 75 to stay alive, 75 to stay alive, 75 to stay alive. And I would walk out of my house saying that every single morning as I hopped on the freeway to drive this commute.
And didn't you say the commute was 75 miles?
Yep.
Isn't that, I mean, that's not surprising. That's fully aligned
Yeah.
with that
So
mantra.
it was just, it was just the way that it happened. And there were people who were dropping out of nursing school because it was too hard for them, because it is hard. Nursing school is very grueling and it's very hard. And then there were people who were basically, not passing a test or whatever. But every morning I just said 75 to stay alive. And trust me, I did the work that goes with it. I studied. And when people talk about vision boards and manifestation, I made my pharmacology class a vision board because that was the hardest class for me.
Oh, can you talk a little bit, just in case people that are listening aren't aware of vision boards or know what
Yes,
they are, but not sure what they
not
mean or how
exactly
to
sure.
do them?
So if you believe in like law and attraction and you believe in creating your own atmosphere and your own environment, one of the keys to success is actually creating your environment to manifest what you want to do. So if it is, let's say, at the time it was completing nursing school, and I knew the hardest class for me was pharmacology and medical math. The rest came easier. I wouldn't say but easier. Those two were extremely hard for me. Pharmacology, I turned my wall that was to the side as my bed was a vision board.
Love
It
it.
was a whole vision board of just pharmaceutical stuff. So it was just, all like the beta blockers. For people who don't know, those are the heart medications, like the blood pressure medications. Then I had like antibiotics. So I had whatever I learned in that time, I would post it up on my wall. And it literally was the first thing that I saw when I woke up. And it was the last thing I saw as I went to bed. And I would look at the wall like it was like Goodwill Hunting. I would look at the wall and be like, please understand this. Come to me. Because pharmacology is very hard. It's a lot of memorization
Sure.
and you have to understand. So it took a long time for me to really understand pharmacology, and making that wall a vision board helped me, and I made a lot of like sayings that would help me too.
Okay.
Yeah, I
Like the
could
way the quick memory
the
joggers
quick
that you could
memory,
remember. Yeah.
like the 75 stay alive. I had
Yeah.
like, stuff for pharmacology as well.
Right. That's awesome. And
Yeah.
I love that you broke that down. And I love that you made a vision board out of the class that was the most the biggest struggle for you,
Yes.
because you could have easily, we talk about limiting beliefs here a lot, and you could have easily said, I just suck at pharmacology. I'm never going to get it. I'm never going to be
No,
able to do this.
no,
And you
that
could have
wasn't an option. Yeah.
correct, you could, but yeah, it wasn't an option
Yeah.
because you wanted the 75 stay alive. You wanted to pass, you wanted to get, the degree, but you could have easily done that. But instead you found a way past that barrier to say, well, if vision boards work in other capacities, why couldn't this work for me? And I know I'm going to look at this when I wake up. I know I'm going to look at this before I go to bed. It's got to sink in somehow. And that belief that you created for yourself through that vision board is really amazing.
And then with this, and then because I had a lot of obstacles with the driving the 2 hours there and then driving the 2 hours back, that took out 4 hours of study time.
Yeah.
Plus I was also doing schooling at the school, and then I would have to do my clinicals. So I had to figure out, how do I guess you could say, manifest through nursing school. Is basically what, because all odds are against me. I'm
Yes.
seeing people drop out, and I'm like, what the fuck? I'm like, I have to get this. So another aspect that I use is the voice, like daily affirmations. So while every morning I was leaving my house saying 75 to stay alive, I also would read my notes, and I would use them almost like daily affirmations. I would listen to them in the car as I was driving.
Oh, that's
So yeah, so a lot of times when I would take the test, I didn't necessarily just read something, but I just heard it from listening to myself speak my notes.
So so you're using all your senses. You're not just using your visual senses. You're using your audio senses.
You have to use,
yeah.
When people talk about manifesting, you really have to use all your senses. You have to really engage what it is that you want, and how that part of what you want is definitely a part of you, and how you take that in and you release it back out. So like with my son, when I found out I was pregnant, I took the pregnancy test, and I said, I'm having a boy. And I said to my daughter, and I told my husband, I'm having our son, I'm having a boy. And I said, I'm having your brother. Automatic, right away, no questions.
You just felt it. You knew it.
It's a boy, and when people and I know a lot of people want a healthy baby, and I want a healthy baby as well. But I also at that time wanted a boy. So I made sure I wore a lot of blue. I looked at blue. I manifested baseballs. I was I was telling my body, it's going to be a boy. There was it's not going to be a girl. It's going to be a boy, because I knew they wanted to tie my tubes after this pregnancy, that the cardiologist didn't even want me having my son.
Right.
So I wanted a girl and a boy in my life, and I keep saying I'm going to have 6 grandchildren. This is the next thing I've been starting to manifest.
We'll have to wait and hear about that, right?
Well, older. They have to be older.
They have to be much older.
They have to be much older. Keeps telling, yes. So.
Wow. That's amazing. So very early on, the manifestation was a huge part of who you were, and that belief system.
Right. So when people say people say sometimes people or have a spiritual awakening, or they have a spiritual journey, and some people I think are just born in some ways spiritual or intuitive. It doesn't take much practice. It comes very easy in the sense that they have very strong intuitions, they have a very strong, their third eye is already open. Mm-hmm. Some people may have more limiting beliefs that prevent them from actually manifesting, where others know that they are fully capable of it at an early age. Like I knew at a young age I was fully capable of it.
Yeah.
At a very young age. The hardest time that I had was turning 40. 40 was one of the blocks that I had to break. I thought I was going to die at 40. So
was that due to your condition? Tell me.
Yes.
I want to hear a little bit more about that.
Yes. So that was due to my condition, my heart condition. And I really picked up a lot of, I guess you could say, toxicity from my heart condition, from, like cardiologist. Not necessarily that they wanted to hurt me or anything, but just when you have a chronic element and you have a chronic condition, it's it's very hard as a child because automatically you're different.
Yep.
Something is wrong with you,
Yeah.
and you don't really know where your life's going to go.
Yeah.
And you don't know. I mean, I remember I was in the doctor's office at the cardiologist, and I was like maybe 15. And I was like, and like as a 15-year-old, to be like, how long do you think I'm going to live?
Oh, I can't even imagine, right? That's
You know,
most 15-year-olds are like, oh, like I hate school
yeah,
and I hate life.
yeah,
What
I
am I
hate
going to do
school.
next?
Yeah.
And they're not.
And
That's the last
I
thing
was
that
a
they're thinking.
I was a very rebellious 15-year-old because I thought I was going to die at 40. So I picked a lot of bad choices in my teenage.
Okay.
I
I'm
was
with you on that.
I was live fast, die young.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the motive. That was how I was when I was 15. And he said, well, there's kind of maybe like you and a few others out there, so you're going to probably live, we don't know. And he kind of left it at that.
So he couldn't really give you an answer.
He couldn't give me an answer. And in all honesty, if he would have said, there's like a few people, maybe like 10 to 15 years older than you. So, we're counting on you. And then I had another cardiologist who I think was more in tune to like manifestation and more like, affirmations, where he said to me, like I said to him one time, well, I said to him, well, I was just happy to have children and to see my children grow. That was my first goal,
Right.
with this thought process that I possibly was going to die young. And he's like, so you didn't plan grandchildren? And I'm like, no. And he's like, why not? And I'm like, well, because of my heart condition, I thought my 40s were going to, I was going to die at 40. And he's like, you're going to live till you're like 88 or 89 or something crazy. He's like, your heart's amazing. He's like, your heart's better than some healthy people's heart. Like, he's like, your heart, he's like, even though it's like, quote unquote, backwards, he's like, it's like one of the healthiest hearts I've ever seen.
Wow.
So the way, I mean, yes, it's still defective, it's still deformed.
Yep.
And it's still reverse, but it's still healthy. So the way he worded it really helped me a lot, because then I was like, okay, he's right. Why should I put a limit on my age?
Yeah.
And now I'm going to live to 88 or 90, and I'm going to have 6 grandchildren.
That's right. You are going to have 6 grandchildren. So this cardiologist gave you that validation and enabled you to kind of move past that limiting belief that you had, that you had all along, really become aligned with, based on all of everything else that you had heard.
Yeah. And then also, another thing, and I think people who have chronic conditions, one of the most beneficial things is finding a support group. And
that's a great thing
finding
to say.
People who have similar, if not the same condition as you, like especially like a heart defect or a type of cancer or something that's chronic, in the sense that you don't know where your life may go. Because when you see other people not only surviving but living in the moment, it's amazing. Like one of the guys in the support group that I'm in, he like had a heart transplant where like, oh my God, everybody was like, oh, that's so scary, but he's recuperated. I mean, I've been in that group for almost 10 years. That's why I joined Facebook, was because of that group.
Okay.
And then, and now he's like freaking running marathons and shit.
That's amazing. How powerful, how powerful. I think, Katherine, your point of when you're struggling with something, and this
Mhm.
is, we're talking chronic medical conditions here, but I think being able to align with people who
Yes.
are in the same, are experiencing similar things, so that you
Right.
don't feel like you're alone. You can see other people and how they overcome and move past, and what they do to step into different spaces, which
Mhm.
then you gain support from them. Everyone cheers themselves on. So it's really powerful to have that community. For 10 years you've had this community.
Yeah. So like what people don't understand is like your spouse and your family can be supportive. They can support you, but they don't necessarily understand how your thought process is and how you're feeling because they don't have the same
Yeah.
conditions. So it's like
Yeah.
with emergency medicine, because I work in emergency medicine, I'm an ER nurse. So I see a lot of really bad
I'm
situations.
sure.
So there's a lot of, PTSD aligned with the EMS, I guess you could say community.
Yep.
And we're really trying to break the stigma because a lot of us have that, I guess you could say, suck it up, buttercup, keep on going.
Right.
Like there's stuff that we do, and then they provide us grief counseling for like
You
10,
said that in
15,
air quotes.
yeah, grief counseling for like 10 or 15 minutes, but then you still have a whole emergency room of patients
You
who
have to
are
move on,
still
and this is fast paced.
who
This
are
isn't
still
just,
sick. Right.
I need an hour to decompress. No, you got to go on to the
No,
next
you
emergency, the next
gotta go back
emergency.
to the next
Yep.
emergency. So
Yep.
you have to learn how to shut that off and keep moving.
Yeah.
I mean, of course, there's certain things where, like, if you see a nurse or a doctor's really having a hard time, somebody else, because we never want to step away,
Right.
has to say, go ahead, get some air, step away. We'll give so and so your assignment, because you can't just continue to take in all this and then not ever release it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
And I think that's probably where a lot of this energy work comes in. Cause I think
mhm,
that, even though, using the example that you experience in your career of the fast paced emergency room, all of these crises situations that keep happening, the point, the broken down point that you made, that when we're feeling overwhelmed and all consumed, we have to give ourselves permission to step
yes,
away and to work through what's going on and kind of get back to it, give ourselves that room to breathe, give ourselves that step out of that chaos, right, to be able
yeah,
to get back to it. This is, I think, a great segue. So when you talk about the energy work that you do, right, the with
mhm,
including like understanding the chakras and all
yeah,
that comes with that, it sounds like that's something that was aligned with you from a very young age. But how did
yeah,
you kind of make that transition? And it sounds like there was some personal work that was connected to that as well.
right. So I'll be completely honest, like with the actual chakras, like learning the chakra system, adapting it into my everyday life, that really started probably about a year ago.
Okay.
Um, the manifestation, the intuition, and like law of attraction has always been there. And then like this, I guess you could say, like the I don't know, the hippie shit of it has
I
always
love the
been
hippie
there.
shit.
Yeah, the hippie shit. Like my dad's a total hippie. Like he's
Love it.
just, I don't know, like he's he used to take me to like Berkeley Park. Like for people who live in California, like Berkeley Park, University of Berkeley, it's like the megadome of hippiness. It's
I am so familiar. Like I was such a hip, like even though I'm an East Coaster, like I was totally like Grateful Dead, The Door,
yes,
like totally like into
yes,
like Hayden Asbury. I'm like, I want to go there.
yeah.
I know it's not the same as it once was, but
No,
all
so
of
like
that is,
yeah, so
I'm
like
down for it.
that's kind of like how my dad was. He was like, he's Mexican, but he's, everybody goes, "Oh, I thought your dad was gonna look like a cholo or something," because that's kind of like how I grew up. I grew up like in the chola like era, and then it's like, no, he's a hippie dude.
I love it.
He's a hippie, and he used to take me down there. I'd buy my crystals at like the age of 8. Like I didn't know what they meant. I didn't know what they did. I just thought they were pretty.
Love it.
I thought they were cool. He was always burning incense. He had, aromatherapy everywhere. He took me to like my first witch doctor, quote, quote, in somebody's garage at the age of 8. Like,
That's amazing.
he was just, that was just his realm. So probably around a year ago is when I really learned about the chakra system. And it was actually, I kept seeing, chakras, learning about it, reading about it. And then when I started my podcast, I was like, well, I need something that portrays me. And I'm like, I like to cuss. That's just
Who
me.
doesn't? I do too.
Like, I have to have cuss words in there somewhere so people know, like, because sometimes I'll be on my Instagram, I'll be like, get your kids out the room. Like, I'm gonna start
Yeah.
cussing. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I have to tell you guys and I'm gonna cuss. So I wanted people to be like warned.
Give the
There's cuss
disclaimer.
words.
Yep.
Yeah, a disclaimer. So, and then also the energy work and the manifestation, and then learning the chakra system. At the time when I was picking the title, I kept saying, I don't even know what a chakra is, but here we go. This is chakras and cuss words, and let's go. And and then my friend was like, I had her come on because she's very into like energy work. She's very into like manifestation. She had a really hard, a lot of obstacles. And she actually just got her real estate license and started her own business. So just her coming on and, because she's the one who kind of was like, you really need to stop fighting your intuition. Because there was a few times where I would tell her like, I dreamt of this, I had this, da, 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 and then she would say, and remember you said that this and this happened? And I was like, yeah. And so she was kind of like the person who was seeing it and was like, when you get that sense, you have to say it.
Yeah.
Because other people need to hear it, because you already know what they're going through. And like there's times like I'll be like, oh, in the emergency room, and I'll be like, okay, like we're going to get a code, and I could just feel it, like a code 3 is going to come in, which is like usually somebody in like cardiac arrest
Okay.
or something like that. And I'll be like putting stuff away. And then all of a sudden I'll just get this inclination, like we're going to get a code or a PD patient's coming in. And then I used to be like, just ignore it. But now I'm more like, okay, no, I need to prepare myself for it mentally. And so that's what I started doing.
And that all when you get those those intuitive feelings,
Mm-hmm.
it usually comes to it usually
Yeah, it really comes. And then I've done, of course, like intuitive exercises. You can do those too. There's all kinds, like you can watch videos and they'll say like what bead is the person going to pull, or what card is this going to be. And it's usually like, for me, they're usually right. I usually always get them right. And then, like I have an owl who lives in my tree, and actually 2, and like, and a hawk. And then the other day, my husband was like, that owl's really big. And I'm like, why do you say he's so big? And he's like, he is. I saw him and he was sitting on the pole, da, 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 and he was telling me about how big he was. And I was like, I haven't seen him in a long time. And I kept thinking that. And I kept thinking, I haven't seen him in a long time. And whatever. And then the next day I go to get up for work, and the light post where my car is parked, he's sitting on there.
He's
And
like, here I am.
Here I am.
Oh my gosh, what kind of owl is it? I love owls.
I don't know. I'm not really good at, I think he's just like a regular brown owl, like just I don't know, Californian owl.
That's so cool though. That's so cool.
Yeah.
So
So
cool.
I mean, it's interesting. I like watching them. And then with the chakra system, definitely, because the chakra each has like its own energy alignment. So when you talk about your blocks, like if it's something that's blocking you that has to do with love, there's like a chakra for that. If there's something that's blocking you, like for like sexual intimacy, there's a block for that. If it's like communication, there's a block for that, or your intuitive state or your confidence. There's a block, like there's a block for, and a chakra for almost anything you could think of. So finding, most people usually don't know which actual block they have or what chakra it is that maybe is like imbalance, or they need to release like past experiences that they've had in life that's hindering them. Like for me, which when somebody asked me, well, what blocks did you have with your chakras? And I said, mine actually was my throat chakra. And they're like,
oh, I love when people, not that I like when people have blocks with their throat chakras, but I always find it interesting because it's so telling.
Yeah. And they're like, your throat chakra, you have a podcast, you talk too much, and all this stuff. It's like, yeah, but when I was a kid, I never spoke up ever. Just recently, like a lot of people will say, I would say I started doing some advocacy work here in our local community, and I've done some public speaking. And I remember the first time somebody asked me to public speak for an event, and I was like, how many people are going to be there? And then the lady at the time, she's very big, I guess. She like ran for Congress. She's a city council person, and she's like, "Oh, it's going to be like the whole city. We invited everybody. Like it's it's a huge event." And I'm like, "Okay,
No
but
problem.
it was I was very nervous, but I did it. Yeah.
What did you tell yourself before you did that big public speaking event? How did you get into that? How did you get past that anxiety?
Right. And it was it was for the Black Lives Matter movement. So it was for such a huge movement that I was very passionate about it. So for me, it was, I wrote the speech down, and I kind of had an idea how I wanted to get it out there. And then when I had my speech, I kept feeling like I was getting emotional, like I was going to cry because I really felt a lot for Breonna Taylor's family and for Breonna Taylor. And I think it was because she was in the EMS services. So it like really resonated with me, and she was studying to be a nurse. That was her dream, was to be a nurse. So for me, I was like, when I would speak about her, I kind of, I'm going to cry, and then I was like, maybe I should take it out. And I read it to my best friend, and the one who's helped me with.
This is the same friend who helped encourage you to step into the space.
Yeah, as I say, we're like sisters, but she lives in Las Vegas. I live in California. We're very connected still. And she's like, nope, you have to read it. If you cry, you cry.
Yep.
That's
what I would say too. Yeah.
And I was like, okay. So, and I read it. I was nervous. And then I was just so surprised by like how the community like supported me. Like so many people privately like messaged me, like searched me and messaged me. And then as I walked off, it wasn't a stage. It was like kind of like in front of City Hall. And as I walked away from the area that I spoke at, like a lot of people were like, your speech was amazing. Like it just really touched me. And I was like, thank you so much.
That's amazing. You know what? And I think I'm so grateful that your friend encouraged you to keep that piece of the speech in there, because, coming from somebody who ugly cries at, it could be something sad, it could be something emotional, it could be something happy.
Yeah.
It's very rare that I'll get through some kind of a speaking engagement where I don't do that.
Right.
And I feel like when you do that, when you're able to show your emotion and your vulnerability, you're showing that you're a human being, and more people are going to connect with you. It's genuine, right? It's that genuine sense that is so missed, because I feel like so many of us, we feel like we have to be perfect, or we have to put on this, persona that we're so professional, and we can't show and express emotion in the way that it sounds like did. And
Yeah.
but when you did that, how many people felt connected to you, felt, like you maybe were speaking their voice, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like they're,
Yeah.
it just shows that. So in with our listeners, listening to your story, sometimes we don't want to be vulnerable, and we don't want to be emotional, and we feel the
Mhm.
need to be perfect. And you know what? I say be emotional, and express exactly what you're feeling, and be human about it, because that's what's going to have people align with you. That's what people are going to be drawn to about you.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's I would say the public speaking, I've done a few for different reasons, like a lot of advocacy work out here in Northern California, but for most of it, it like it gets easier the more you do it.
Yeah.
And the more I've had people ask me to speak a lot for like the nurses, like with safety issues and stuff like that. And I'm always, ready to like look into the situation if it aligns with me. I would say if it's something that doesn't align with you, don't speak on it.
Agreed. Yep.
Do not, because I will see sometimes um people are maybe asked to speak and they don't necessarily understand, or they maybe it doesn't really necessarily align with them, but they feel like they're helping a movement or helping something. And if it's not really something you feel, then
Yep.
I wouldn't. Yeah.
Exactly. Because people can see that, right? And it's not
Yeah.
going to come through when you're
No.
speaking about it, and
Yeah.
it could be anything. It could be on social media, it could be at a public event, it could be on Clubhouse, it could be people are going to feel that and sense
Yeah.
that from you. And that's not going to come off as, you're not going to connect the way that you would if you're speaking from something that you're passionate about, or something that
Right.
you feel expressed about. I feel like I can't agree more with that. I also want to just kind of circle back to when your friend, this friend who's incredible, this best friend of yours, who pointed out your, they pointed you in the direction that you probably intuitively knew and understood, but the validation, after you received the validation from this friend in terms of the chakra work, in terms of the healing work, in terms of the podcast and things like that, that I think is something that we all need. We need to listen to those validations in our life, whether it's coming from a friend, a family member, a loved one, whether it's through like I'm putting this stuff out there on social media and people keep giving me a similar message. I can't just blow it off, and I can't just we'd be remiss to blow those things off. I know that I fell into that category for so long too, but people would say like, oh, you're inspiring me to do this, you're inspiring me to do that, and I can't be. Now, you know what, yeah, that's great, but I can't be the one doing that. There's got to be, but for real, when we keep receiving these messages from the universe, it's our responsibility to sit down and listen to them,
Yeah.
and write them down. Listen to these messages. Why are
Right.
people telling me this? What is it
Right.
about this piece
Right.
of me that could be that next step? Maybe I can do something. What can I do with this? Because clearly
Right.
I'm getting to people, in a sense. People are feeling
Yeah.
this from me, right? And I
Yeah.
need to, this is might be my calling, it might be a passion project, whatever it may be.
Mm-hmm.
When we don't have our eyes open to those things, and we make excuses as to why, or we downplay it, it
Yeah.
doesn't let us, in the terms of this episode, right? We're not
Right.
able to manifest those things. We're not able to
No.
see those things. We have the blinders on, right? And when those blinders come off, our eyes get wide open to different possibilities and opportunities.
Yes. So as like some people would say, if it's, your third eye, your regular eye, just, have your vision open to see what
Yeah.
it could be. Because a lot of times we get these, I don't know if they're callings, or we get these intuitions, or we get these little pieces where people are saying to us, like, you inspire me. Like, I started a support group on Facebook for like clean eating, and I supported that, I think maybe like in 2017, 14, I don't know, 2017, I think. And it grew about maybe to like 2,000 people.
That's
And
pretty awesome.
yeah, and I'll be honest, like when I started the group, so many people were like, it was almost very overwhelming. So you have to make sure that it's also something you want,
Yes.
because if it's something that you don't want, and some people are able to speak to people in a way where people resonate with you and they align with you, and they see that you're a motivated person and that you have this mindset that can help them because you've already helped yourself.
Hmm.
So at first, like, I started this group that was supposed to just be like friends, and and it kept growing and it kept growing. And then I was like, well, I'll put questions on there, because if you put the questions in, like, why do you want to join this group, what does clean eating mean to you, it's gonna people aren't gonna want to answer the questions. They're not gonna want to
Right, right.
they're not gonna join. Next thing you know, people are answering the questions, they're coming into the group. And just recently I said, I feel like I'm not paying a service to this group, because even though, I practice clean eating, I'm not posting consistently. I'm
Okay.
not posting every day. It aligns with me, but it's not like the main objective that I want to concentrate on.
Okay.
So I actually reached out to people and I said, like, hey, I have this clean eating group. It's, has 2,000 people in there. It has a good engagement. Would you like to help me moderate? And these are like people who I've, kind of watched in the group, who I've
Okay.
seen are active
Trusted
in the group.
people who
Yeah.
are invested.
Yeah. So I'm like, this helps me tremendously because it takes the pressure off of it. And if they decide to monetize off of it, if they bring in because most of them are like fitness coaches, whatever, and they do that and it works beneficial for them, then that's great.
Yep.
That's
Yep.
great. But for me, that's not exactly what I'm aligned with. So
Right.
so definitely when you get these notions, make sure it aligns with you, because you don't want to bombard yourself with stuff that isn't fully your center.
I
I
love
hope
that.
that helps.
It does. I love that
Yeah.
because I think we just, especially most of the people in this audience are women, and I think we just feel like, I'm creating something. Let me take everything on. Let me take everything on. But
Yeah.
there are certainly things in our lives that we are not aligned with or connected with, and we feel we feel like we have to keep going with them because we're going to disappoint someone if we drop it
Mhm.
off or we don't do it. But if we're not aligned with it, our energy is going to, as we've said throughout this, our energy is going to show through and
Yeah.
people aren't going to feel it anymore. So how amazing that you recognize that, and instead of just disbanding it completely or letting it fizzle out, you said, well, I know that there
Yeah.
are people who are passionate about this, so let me
Mhm.
kind of pass the baton to them so that they
Yeah.
can do what they're so great at doing with this group, so that
Yeah.
group can continue to thrive, and
Mhm.
not seeing that as, well, if I pass it to them, then they're going to get all the accolades, and what if they grow? Seeing it as a partnership, or as a, let me build them up and I'm going to feel great about building them up, versus
Yeah.
this is a competition kind of thing,
No,
right?
yeah.
And I
It's,
think that that's amazing.
yeah. It's, and when I was doing the clean eating group, when I was very active in it, I did monetize from it. I used to do like meal plans, and I would count macros because I'm good at counting macros, and actually following them is a different story, but I'm good at counting them and seeing what works for people when they are on that road of like getting fit or losing weight or whatever.
Yeah.
So I did that for like the first year when I had the group, and I was able to monetize off of it. But then it was like something that was like, I don't know if I necessarily want to do this the rest of my life. So then it was like, okay, I need to find people who this is their calling. This is what they want to do.
Yeah.
They already have those fitness blogs. They already have, you know,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
their healthy blogs going, Yeah.
So having the people who are more aligned in that space kind of take over. And when you're not
Yeah.
feeling aligned with that space anymore, giving
Yeah.
yourself permission to pass the baton and to step into something that feels more aligned to you, which I think is a fantastic message for our audience, that so many times, whether it's a career that we've had for a long time or something that we feel like we're supposed to do, we get stuck in these positions where our energy is not what it once was. But we keep going through with it because we feel like we have to, or we're supposed to, or we don't know, we're afraid to step into that next place. But being aware of your energy, I think is a huge key factor here, right? If we're not feeling it for whatever reason, whether that's social situations or friendships or relationships or jobs or careers or whatever it is, let me have a conversation with myself and figure out what I need to do to shift, because staying in a place where your energy is dissolved or not like it once was is not going to serve you or anybody else connected to that anymore.
Yeah.
Which
so
is it's such a powerful message, and one to be constantly in touch with and reminding yourself of.
Yeah.
And with that said, Katherine, what's one thing that you would like our listeners to take away from this interview today? If they could take anything away, what's one thing that you would say?
Right. Definitely when you are like, if it's something that you're trying to manifest, or if it's something that you're trying to show like the world, or if it's something you're trying to do, definitely make sure it's what you want. Because sometimes we get stuck into these situations like, does this really align with me? No, it doesn't. And then we get into these areas where we're like, okay, I've succeeded and I'm doing this and it's working, but I'm not necessarily happy. And if it's not making you happy, regardless if it's making you money, if it's making you fame, if it's making you whatever it is, but if it's not making you happy, then what's the point?
Yeah. Yeah. It's
I mean,
so
what's the
true.
point?
It's
Yeah,
so
because
true.
like I can do all these adventures and do all this stuff and make money, but if I'm hating it, and even though I'm, sick of doing it, it's like I'm having a job.
Yeah.
I'm just imprisoned by my own doing.
Yeah.
So just make sure it's something that really is for you,
Yeah. I love
no
that.
matter what it is.
Don't be imprisoned by your
Yeah,
own doing, right?
by
By your
your own
own
doing. A lot of
choices.
people fall into that. A lot. I see it all the time.
Yeah.
It's like, they have the road to success, or they have the road to, whatever it is that they want to do. They want to get their message out, their voice out. And maybe they're looking to create this, business, or they create this whatever, and they're in it and they're progressing, and then they're like, damn, I'm tired.
Mm-hmm.
I'm really, really tired. Is this worth it?
Yeah.
And it's like, is it still making you happy?
Yep. Yep.
If it's still making you happy, then
Yeah.
yes, it's worth it.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
so today's the beginning of, actually, no, wait, is today the 23rd or was yesterday the 23rd?
Yesterday was the 23rd.
23rd. So it was the beginning of the lunar eclipse. So
Perfect timing.
perfect timing. I have tons of podcasts that I can release because I have a lot of, and I said, you know what, for this Monday, I'm not going to release. I'm going to give the chance for my listeners and for me to have regrowth with this new lunar eclipse, to basically no, it's not the lunar eclipse. I'm sorry. Today is Saturn retrograde. I'm thinking
The
lunar,
retrograde.
the retrograde.
Yes.
Yes, it's the Saturn retrograde. The lunar eclipse is the 26th. I get my dates mixed up. So I was like, I'm going to just give myself time for the retrograde to just kind of regrowth and go from there.
Yeah.
And the 26th will be the lunar eclipse. Too much with the universe.
So much. And
So
being
much.
aware
I
and
decided I'm not going to release a podcast. I'm going to let everybody just kind of breathe it in,
breathe it
breathe
in.
out.
That's
Yes.
right. And speaking of podcasts, we're gonna post all of your links below. They're gonna be clickable, but I always love people to just verbally share. Yeah,
Yes.
of course. I love people
So
to verbally share. So where can listeners find you and follow you?
I'm everywhere.
I love it.
I'm everywhere. So my podcast is Chakras and Cuss Words. And it is on Apple and it's on Spotify and I think Google and stuff, Google Podcasts. It's also on my YouTube. My YouTube, just started really
Awesome.
working on. So I don't have all the episodes on there. But I do have a lot of the guided meditations. I do guided chakra
Oh,
meditations.
I love it.
And we're also going to, and I have, so the full 10-piece chakra series is out. They're like 8 to 10 minutes long, 7 chakras. And that series is out. And then there's like a little full body guided meditation. And then we're going to take a break from that. And then we're actually going to do the chakras, just kind of a whole breakdown of what each chakra means, what it works with, how can you release, how can you manifest with that chakra, what blocks you might have with that chakra.
That's awesome.
We're going to do that. And then we're going to keep up with our cuss words part, which is the regular like communication podcasting, where I interview somebody.
Yeah.
And then we're going to take it back to the guided meditations, but then these are going to be 20-minute after.
Perfect.
But first, my listeners, we really have to go through the chakras so they fully understand it for the 20-minute chakra guided meditations. Yeah.
Well, I love that you break it down and that you educate people on those different points, because even somebody like myself who sees the value but isn't so knowledgeable about what each one means. So that's awesome. And I think that's something that probably sets your podcast apart from so many, is that breakdown and that understanding and learning of what each chakra means, which is great. And the cursing, I mean, come on, let's be human here. That's a healthy curse word is really powerful.
Definitely. A healthy curse word keeps you going.
It does.
Yeah.
This was awesome. I'm so grateful that you took your time and energy, Katherine, to come on and talk to our listeners. And certainly the value here of, of listening to your intuition and listening to when people are giving you these validations and these messages, to be able to step into a different space and keeping your aura and your energy open to receive all of this information and to take this information and to really do something with it. A really powerful, incredible story. And I'm so grateful that you are in the place that you're in, and that you're in a healthy place, and that you're inspiring others to just, get into the zone of their energy and to just work through that and be the best versions of themselves. So appreciate you being here. Every single link's going to be listed that you shared, so people are going to be able to click on those and find you, and definitely appreciate your time and space and energy being here. So thank you
so much.
Of course. And as we close all of our shows, everybody, again, if you are in a place and you're wondering how to jump over that fence, or you're feeling inspired, but you don't know what to do with that, or what's next for you, definitely get on a discovery call with me so I can show you how we can work towards getting you into that space, because you are worthy and deserving of it. And as we always say here to end our shows here, is that just because you've done everything in life that you're supposed to do does not mean that you've done everything that you're meant to do in your life. So thank you so much for being here, Katherine. Again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
We will see everybody on the next episode.